What addiction is the hardest to quit? Story 1. I've heard a Harvard psychiatrist who specializes in addictions say the addiction that's hardest to treat is the one where the patient says that it makes them feel like a normal person, like it makes them feel like everyone else, because that's a really hard thing to give up, feeling normal. This is exactly why I started doing drugs. Painkillers and meth removed my anxiety and let me feel just normal and able to function around other people. Then one day I got anxiety while high on meth and it never went away while high. And because you're on meth, the anxiety gets multiplied by 100. I had to be very careful about what I did around other people because I would be shaking so badly that it would give me away. Literally couldn't hold a pen and write my name. 2 years sober in June. I'm an addict, but I'm not the kind that needs to take every last bit or drink every last ounce. I don't even like to be messed up, but I need a little alteration constantly. Could be weed, wine, nicotine, caffeine. I'm just addicted to not feeling normal. I've done a lot of inner work, examinations of my trauma, meditation, and even exercising a few days a week. I feel so uncomfortable in my skin without just a little nip, toke, pill, or puff. I'm starting to think it could be untreated ADHD. Addiction is really fascinating because our brains do so much without us realizing it. So addiction happens because our brains start to notice a pattern. It notices when you are with these people, or in this place, or feeling like this, you do an activity, drug, or whatever else to raise or lower certain brain chemicals, and so for example, you do a drug that raises your dopamine with your friends. When you see your friends, your brain will start lowering the level of dopamine in preparation for the drug you usually do with these people. This makes you feel like you need the drug in order to feel normal or to get your dopamine back to your baseline. It's also why you need more of the drug over time to get the same feeling. It's amazing how much our brains mess with us. I get extremely anxious over doing something I've been doing weekly with my friends with good fun results, Dungeons and Dragons, yet every week when something new is coming, I get a deep sense of dread somehow my friends who have been doing this with me for 3 years now will suddenly hate it and/or me. I despise it but have learned I just have to truck through the feeling and see that the outcome doesn't match the feeling. It's not quite an addiction, but I felt compelled to share due to the anxiety aspect. Story 2. Cocaine was hard. Booze was harder. Cancer sticks were the hardest. Took me 2 solid years of trying to quit. I'd go 2 to 3 days and then have a whole pack. I finally waited until I got the flu really bad and haven't smoked a cigarette in 2,256 days. According to my app, that's 31,578 cigarettes not smoked and over $200,000 not spent. The last pack I purchased was over $17.50 here in California. Coke was the easiest thing for me to give up, but I truly had to be ready to give it up. My Coke habit was fueled by alcohol and I'll crave it if I drink too much. Alcohol was much harder and took me longer. After years of functioning alcoholism, I started to get terrible hangovers that lasted for 2+ days. It made me sick enough that I never wanted to drink again. I've gone to bars, ordered mocktails, had a wonderful time, and woke up feeling refreshed rather than hungover. Cigarettes, though? Totally different. I don't want to smoke, but I don't want to stop smoking either. It's my one last vice after giving everything else up. Each time I quit, I start again. In due time, I assume I'll get tired of smoking too. Bro, I live in New York and pay $16 or $17 for a pack too. Would save a lot of money if I quit. Man, I want to quit so bad, but it's hard even after having a recent cancer scare and not being able to sleep at night, thinking about how it might be serious. I still need to check that out with my doctor, but sadly, it's the only thing that keeps my mental health in check, and I'm literally typing all this while smoking. I don't drink, and I recently got off my 6-year weed addiction, used it daily, after I realized how unproductive and anxious it made me. It helps your mental health is the lie I used to tell myself too. I always said it helps me focus, it keeps me from getting angry, etc. Dude, it's all BS. Those are excuses, and the nicotine is literally convincing you to convince yourself of all of those lies. It's crazy how strong the addiction really is. Hope you can quit, man. I'll be 2 years and 3 months old tomorrow. I quit 2 years back in 2016 to 2017, then started up again with a new job and people that smoked. Plus, everyone, family, friends, etc. smoke, and they still do, but that wasn't the first time I had tried to quit. It was just the longest stint. It took me getting COVID and trying to smoke each day I had to quit. Not physically being able to inhale it is what sealed the deal for me. That was on Christmas Day 2021. Haven't touched a cigarette since. It's been 2 years and a day, shy of 3 months. Broke my record and will never go back. I used to have dreams of smoking cigarettes and then waking up. It actually helped me trick my brain into thinking I just had a smoke, but I would absolutely get the occasional urge randomly. That stopped completely around 1.5 years after I quit. Haven't craved one since then. Was a pack-a-day smoker since 13 years old and started smoking a couple a day at 10 years old. The best thing I did was quit. I never woke up with the feeling I couldn't breathe. No more cough. Energy level changed dramatically. Started lifting more and actually seeing results since the nicotine wasn't eating my muscle tissue. All in all, the best accidental/naturally forced decision by the universe I've ever made. Story 3. I was a heavy smoker for 15 years. Quit cold turkey. Never was addicted to videos. I kicked a cocaine habit. Being a high-functioning alcoholic is probably something I'll never be able to beat. Trying to quit drinking hurts me physically and mentally so badly, and it doesn't really affect my life right now, so I justify not putting myself through it. I know I'm shortening my life by not quitting, but I still just can't do it. Quitting alcohol can be done. In my experience, it takes time, patience, multiple relapses, and a mindset reset. It has taken me about 3 years to develop a distaste for alcohol, but I was a functional alkie for about 20 years. Go for it. You won't regret it. I think alcohol really is the hardest to quit because it becomes a literal part of your body. People die from quitting alcohol cold turkey. My alcoholic father had to be put on an alcohol drip during surgery just so his body wouldn't go into withdrawals and kill him, because a couple of hours without it would. Weirdly, he's never smoked, but did work in construction with asbestos, so he needed surgery for lung cancer. I grew up thinking he was Superman. The amount of times that man flipped his car and was found in a pile of blood on the road somewhere, I have no idea how he isn't dead yet. Yes, I'm 100% with you. I've quit nicotine. It's not that hard. Out of sight, out of mind. Booze? Never out of mind. I want to drink every day around 5 p.m. I'm annoyingly also just too high-functioning to care right now. I want to quit, but drinking is so easy, and it isn't yet negatively affecting my health. But I know one day it will if I don't stop. Is nicotine easy? I'm not doubting you, as everyone is different, but damn, out of sight absolutely isn't out of mind for me, lol. And this is coming from someone who has quit benzos, amphetamines, drinking, and a few other less addictive things. But I chew the nicotine pouches. You can have them anywhere, no need to spit or take smoke breaks. It's just so hard because, well, I don't know why. It's like you just feel like you need it. I just finished my 5th month sober from alcohol. I got help. Checked myself into rehab for 45 days, and went to AA meetings regularly. I'm at a point where relapsing is a very real danger. There are drugs that help me with cravings. I had to admit to myself that I couldn't do it myself. The benefit of rehab was, for me, 3 things. First, the first week of detox in a clinical setting where they watched me for signs of withdrawal like heart attack or stroke. Then classes where they educated me about what was going on in my mind and body. Then, last but not least, the drugs counteract the cravings and anxiety to a degree. I'm still taking some of those. After my release, that's when the hard part came in. If a person doesn't go to support meetings afterward, statistics show a more than 75% relapse rate. I won't argue with that, judging by how mind-boggling strong my urges were up to 90 days sober. I'm very fortunate to have supportive family and friends. Without them and AA, I'm unsure if I could have maintained sobriety this long. For true alcoholics, cutting back isn't going to work. Unfortunately, it's an all-or-nothing type of thing, but the benefits of sobriety are great. Story 4. Scrolling. It's honestly the only thing holding me back from accomplishing so many things in my life. It has such a hold on me. Short-form content, like YouTube Shorts and Reels, are my new issue. One moment you're watching a handful of them, next thing you know you haven't moved in 48 minutes and it's dark outside. It really is hypnotism. The worst is when you close out of scrolling for the past 45 minutes only to hear the silence of the loneliness around you. The thoughts of how you are uninteresting and have nothing to do and no friends starts to set in. You start thinking positively, like, how can I start a new hobby? Maybe I'll look up a video on how to start a knitting project. Opens YouTube and sees the "I gave $100,000 to the first person who looked at me" YouTube short. Well, I have to see this real quick. Clicks, next, next. Another 30 minutes of doom scrolling. You know, I think we need to find a sound within the silence and fall in love with it, because there's no such thing as true silence on Earth. I really love the sound of the dishwasher or washing machine running. I love birds chirping. I love the sound of the heat kicking on a cold day, or a good metal blade fan, especially a vintage one. Metal just cuts the air better, I swear. I like the sound of my children's breaths as they sleep, or my dog when she's snoring. There's a highway nearby, and the sound of cars hitting the bridges is a nice sound as well. Sometimes just trying to silence our inner monologue and listen to things like that can be super great for our mental health. Story 5. Food addiction. Because you literally cannot quit. You just have to find a way to moderate your use without ever being able to. You have to completely reshape your relationship with food, which is arguably much harder than just stopping whatever you're addicted to and having a sight out of mind approach. You cannot ignore food. Even if you were a monk in the Himalayas, you still need to eat. Yeah, with cigarettes or alcohol, the cutting down approach is the biggest barrier to quitting outright. It's a self-defeating attitude, bargaining with your future self. I'll do half the work, you do the other half. But your future self has just gone through the first half and is waiting for a future heroic self to come along and finish the job. Those who go on to successfully quit do so when the realization that you have to quit outright or not at all hits and coincides with the motivation to do so, and you have to go through hell with cold turkey withdrawal. Food addiction is this, but you can't quit cold turkey because turkey is food also. Obviously a joke, but unlike most addictions, it is impossible to stop all food completely and survive the ordeal. People who eat themselves into health oblivion and have to draw themselves out of that to a stable point of health have to go cold turkey every day for the rest of their lives, meaning with every meal that they need to survive, they have to expose themselves to a small amount of the drug but stop the addiction-seeking instincts from taking over continuously, all day, every day. It's hell. The only way to do it is to change who you are as a person. Most people are not capable of doing that. Look at the number of ex-drug and alcohol addicts who say it's all or nothing. They can't even have a single hit, or they will be back on the drug full time. I don't know anyone who successfully went from alcoholic to infrequent and controlled drinking. There are medications, the glutides that work for people who binge eat, to obesity, and are showing some small promise for addiction also. But they absolutely require monstrous willpower for most people to successfully control their addiction to food or drug. It's my crutch. Another guy on this topic said cigarettes were harder to beat than cocaine for him. Took 2 years. Me, giving up smoking was laughably easy. I just didn't buy another pack and then slept most of the weekend. Headache is gone after 2 days and you're done. Food, my personal hell. Eating carbs is the only endorphin I get. It's not a race, our vices, not a contest of who is more worthy of sympathy. I respect that guy who had a hard time with smoking. He did it conquering his own hell. I certainly haven't. I think if I could just stop eating altogether, it wouldn't be a problem for me, but you never can. You have to eat to live, and the amount is never enough to satisfy. Worst thing ever, at least for me. Story 6. As a former active H addict, I will say I would not wish withdrawals on anyone. They are truly hellacious. I feel blessed to have gotten out of all of that before fentanyl took over. I would probably be dead now. Same. I stopped in the summer of 2014 and in the next couple of years lost so many friends to fentanyl. But yeah, that withdrawal is something I will never forget. Anyone who tells you it's like a bad flu has clearly never experienced it. It's like the worst depressive episode you've ever had, combined with the worst panic attack you've ever had, combined with the worst flu you've ever had. It lasts for a week straight with no relief and you can't even sleep to escape it. Screw heroin. I've gone through benzo withdrawal, Roxy 30, and Subox withdrawal cold turkey after a 2-year habit. So I was very familiar with opiate withdrawal, but fent withdrawal shook me. I never experienced the shakes and burning and literally having to clench my cheeks the whole walk and train ride home. It was awful. Oh, and the best part is that it was precipitated and brought on by Suboxone. I ended up in the hospital. I showed up at rehab on the same day as another guy. He was detoxing from H and I was detoxing from alcohol. The rest of the people had a bet on who had it worse. I have to say detoxing from alcohol is pretty goddamn awful. The shakes, the anxiety, the hallucinations, the seizures, not sleeping, not eating, throwing up anything that comes in contact with your insides including water, terror. Round-the-clock terror. It took me 5 days before I could eat or sleep. They sent me to the emergency room twice for bags of saline. I don't know that you need to compare these devastating drugs. It's all bad. Story 7. Food. You have to do it, so it can't stop. Exactly. You can quit most and never touch it ever again aside from major withdrawals like drugs that require medical help. Food is harder than most because you have to eat. Making healthy choices is a lot harder than quitting smoking or alcohol in my experience. I literally needed a gastric bypass in order to get down to a healthy weight. It was 5 years ago last November and my BMI is still just barely over 25, which is completely fine for my body type. And the all-encompassing hunger has been gone since the day of the surgery, much to my never-ending relief. I could finally understand how someone could have a package of cookies in the house and not eat all of them the very same day. Before, I just didn't understand how anyone could have that much willpower. Now, I know that a lot of people just don't even think about the fact that they're there. Back then, it would have been easier for me to understand quantum physics than that simple concept. Semaglutide has been a lifesaver for me, down 40 pounds ready, and I just don't think about food all day like I used to. It's why I'll probably choose to do a maintenance dose for the rest of my life. Honestly, 20 years of constant struggle and failure, and this just makes it go away, freeing up that mental energy to live life. This is why, if I can afford it, I want to stay on Ozempic or something similar forever. For the first time ever after taking it, I feel normal. I don't have a voice screaming or whispering in my head at all times telling me to eat something. I don't fantasize about how good something is going to taste. I don't get food cravings. I don't eat when I'm not physically hungry. I have a normal relationship with food where I can make healthy choices in healthy portion sizes because there isn't a food demon constantly sabotaging my inner voice. This is the only thing I've ever tried while battling my weight, extra 30 to 50 pounds since I was a teenager, that makes me feel normal. If the shortage ever stops and the prices will come down and not cost me $1,000 per month, I want this feeling forever. Story 8. Sugar. Last year, as a New Year's resolution, I quit all added sugar, much to the chagrin of my fiancé, for almost 11 months. Once I went to Italy and had cheesecake though, it was over, and I haven't been close to going back, though I do try to be conscious. In the beginning, I was experiencing withdrawal and lost 25 to 30 pounds, and I was already unhealthy underweight, so the sugar in general is probably just bad. Sugar is clearly evil and is the root cause of the vast majority of diseases and illnesses. Edit. Folks downvoting this are obviously deep into your addiction and likely actively feeding your children's and spouse's addictions as well. Wake up. Sugar is more addictive than heroin and has killed more people than tobacco, fentanyl, and alcohol combined. I've thankfully been able to free myself from the jaws of sugar and have been enlightened to the world of flavor that exists out there. So much food is just pounded with things like sugar, corn syrup, glycerin, etc. to the point where it mutes like 80% plus of the original flavor. Things like chocolate can be extremely rich and its taste has so many different sides to it, but when you just slam it full of sugar, it all goes away and it's just sweet soup. Coffee has a really deep, bold, lovely, earthy flavor, but it's completely muted when you fill it with sugar. Sugar is like sex with 5 condoms on, or trying to find something out of your pocket with gloves on. This is mine, I think. I have never been addicted to anything. I tried a cigarette here and there, and Coke twice. Alcohol, nope. But every night after my dinner, I have to fight the urge for something sweet. I've cut back on as much added sugar as possible in my diet, but there's something about the end of the day. If I end up eating outside of my nutrition plan, it's because of a sugar craving that's so intense I cannot ignore it. Story 9. Alcohol. Withdrawals don't just feel bad, they can kill you. So much worse than what we think until we've seen it. It almost killed me last fall. Had a hardcore seizure in an airport and smashed my head on a marble floor. Don't remember any of it except waking up in a dark hospital room. Similarly, I'm a recovered alcoholic. To say that it's difficult doesn't even begin to describe it. I was in the military. Obviously a ridiculously stressful job, and would come home and lay in bed with a gun against my head for a few hours until I could convince myself to chug liquor until I was physically incapable of pulling the trigger. That equated to roughly a fifth of liquor, and it was pretty much every night. It's a horrible life to live, and even the physical symptoms didn't stop me at the time. The biggest one was that my throat would swell up and I wouldn't be able to eat the next day. Miraculously though, I could still drink. It's weird how that works. Cut to today, I'm spending time with my girlfriend's family tomorrow afternoon, so today is one of the few days I've allowed myself to drink. I had a six-pack starting around noon, and now it's about 5 p.m. my time, and I'm nearly sober. I won't drink any alcohol for the next couple of weeks. This life is so much better, and I couldn't be happier. I can still enjoy some alcohol, but I haven't been fully drunk for about a year now. Separating from the military helped a lot, but the other thing that has made a world of difference has been weed. After dinner, I plan on smoking and watching some movies. I'll sleep all the way through the night, instead of waking up on the floor somewhere still pissed drunk. I'll wake up tomorrow completely fine, won't feel like crap, and I won't have to worry about any calls or texts I sent the night before. After experiencing the life that I lived before, I really have the perspective to appreciate the life that I have now. I've seen my brother go through alcohol withdrawal and have 2 seizures, start hallucinating, and being extremely paranoid, coming in and out of some sort of psychosis, where he's doing irrational, erratic, and unusual behaviors, screaming and having convos like someone is talking to him there when no one is there. Then stripped totally naked and started knocking on a door to an abandoned home. The police were called and my brother tried to come at them. They tackled his butt-ass naked on the street and tossed him in the back of a car where he proceeded to thrash around screaming at the top of his lungs, all in one day. We called 911 several times long before he was streaking and described all this twice to the police and paramedics, but because he refused to go, they wouldn't take him against his will unless something happened that they could see. The police weren't taking it seriously at all up until they were called about a naked man running around in a trailer park. He was finally taken to the hospital after he was arrested. The police wanted to book him for indecent exposure, resisting arrest, and attempting to assault an officer, but one of the paramedics who was a witness to us calling several times earlier and our struggle to get him help before anything more serious happened, came forward and testified. The judge dropped everything. This was during the pandemic. I wish I could say he got sober after, but he's still struggling. I, on the other hand, also developed alcohol dependency during the pandemic and ended up hospitalized for 3 days with alcoholic ketoacidosis and legitimately felt like I was dying. It was absolutely the worst I'd ever felt in my life. I was so thirsty but couldn't keep down water and struggled to catch my breath and was so weak and in agony from all the vomiting and dehydration. My body had become acidic. The banana bag they gave me never felt so good. Story 10. I think smoking. I have seen smokers relapse after abstaining from it for a decade or more. I relapsed after a couple of years. However, I don't drink and don't have any vices, and I started substituting with food which wasn't getting healthy for me. Figured I'd just switch to nicotine. I don't smoke cigarettes though, just nicotine gum, or occasionally a vape hit if I'm out of gum. If I had at least one guilty pleasure, I'm sure I would have never voluntarily picked it back up. But damn, life is too stressful to not have anything for daily pleasure. Years ago, I had a coworker who was a smoker. She found out she was pregnant and quit cold turkey. She did it and never relapsed even after her son was born. I'm amazed. Determination, mind power, call it whatever you want, it's mind-blowing. Not sure how common this is. I quit cold turkey 18 years ago when my son was born. I'm a guy. I guess I wasn't happy with screwing my own health up, and that my wife hated it, but that wasn't enough motivation to really quit, rather than endless half-assed attempts. Having a kid and wanting to be around to ensure his life went okay pushed me over the line. I would quit or die trying. For me at least, cold turkey was the answer. Before, I kept trying to cut down. That led to constantly keeping track of how much I was smoking, which made me anxious, so I inevitably went back, after a few miserable days, to smoking just as much if not more. My view is that the actual physical cravings aren't really all that bad. I mean, I've read what heroin withdrawal is like, and nicotine cravings are nothing compared with that. What makes smoking so bad as an addiction is that the cravings remind you and reinforce the notion that having a smoke is like taking a break. Nicotine withdrawal makes you anxious. Smoking relieves that anxiety, so every once in a while, when you are working hard or just wake up, you take a smoke break, so in your mind, never having a smoke again becomes the equivalent of never taking a break again. And who could live without ever taking a break in your life? It's like saying, I will never sleep again. It just can't be done. What you have to do is dissociate the having a break with having a smoke in your mind. Easier said than done, of course. A key realization is that the mechanism keeping your mind pinned to the endless wheel of smoking is the cravings. And if you stop taking nicotine in any form, it goes away pretty fast, maybe 3 weeks or so. So just don't take the drug. Tough it out for 3 weeks while substituting other fun activities for smoke breaks. That seemed to work for me. Addictions like smoking, drinking, and junk food, I think, can be very hard to quit because they are so much more socially acceptable addictions to have. A hard drug addict knows that what they are doing is wrong and is often shunned by society, which creates a huge source of motivation to get clean. Story 11. Nicotine, for me, is very hard to quit. Honestly, if you really have the desire to quit, the combo that helped me quit was using nicotine lozenges for a few months. That helped the cravings as well as the oral fixation. I think it's more useful if you are a menthol smoker because it also gives you that minty oral fixation. Then, once you almost enjoy those as much as or equal to cigarettes, convert over to the nicotine patches and substitute the lozenges with cough drops, sugar-free as you don't need the cavities or calories. Then slowly go down in your patch nicotine level as suggested. Continue to use cough drops for as long as you need. Amazed no one's mentioned Alan Carr. I'm as skeptical as they come and spent most of my time scoffing as I forced myself to read it. But goddamn, that stuff really does rewire your brain somehow. I'd been vaping the nicotine equivalent of 15 cigarettes a day for 10 years, and the moment I finished that book, I quit cold turkey and never looked back. That's not to say that the first month wasn't brutal and full of the most hideous mood swings you can imagine, but not once did I think about actually going and buying another vape. Absolutely incredible. I quit over 6 years ago. I tried several times before I was successful. What did it for me was 1, I didn't tell anyone I was quitting. If you fail, it will make you feel bad for letting others down. 2, I stopped going to gas stations for anything other than gas and I always paid at the pump. That is where I bought my cigarettes. 3, allow yourself to feel the emotions that come with quitting. My sister noticed first when we were driving home after being together all that day. She said, "You haven't smoked once today." I started crying because it had only been 5 days and man, I was feeling it. I told her I hadn't had a cigarette in 5 days and it took everything I had to push through the cravings. I quit cold turkey and I didn't replace one habit with another. It is very hard to quit, but you have to allow yourself to feel whatever may come up. The hardest thing is just how the cravings never seem to go away. I've quit multiple times, 2 of them lasting for over a year each, and the cravings were there every day. Anytime I got stressed out, my brain would scream at me to go to the smoke shop and buy a pack. Story 12. Eating disorders. You can't not eat. People don't have compassion for people who suffer from them either. I've dealt with this for years. I go through an anorexia/binge cycle. I'll quit eating entirely for a week, or usually 2, and then start eating again. I feel like I look healthier, and my family will encourage me to eat until the point it becomes unhealthy again. Then I starve myself again, and the cycle repeats. It's terribly addictive and gives you body dysmorphia, so you never really know what you look like. Even at my thinnest, I still felt chubby. At my biggest, I feel like a whale. And most people don't understand because I am built bigger. Even if I haven't been eating and my body is literally failing, strangers will still make comments making me feel huge and encouraging starvation. I was pregnant and got a burrito from the gas station which had about 1,000 calories. Some guys wouldn't stop going on about it and said, "Wow, you're really going to eat that? Do you have any idea how many calories that has?" It was during one of my thinner periods when I was wearing size 12 jeans. So I wasn't that big. I was only about 15 to 20 weeks pregnant, and he bought 2 of them too. But it still made me feel unbelievably giant and made me quit eating much even though I was carrying a baby and should have passed it off. I feel you. I'm also a bigger girl with ED. My first personality trait when I was a baby was gluttony. I would drink milk fast and then vomit. As a child, I was overrated despite my parents trying to control me. I wasn't in a kind of family where they were okay with it, and I didn't know how to stop myself from feeling hungry. Mom made me go to so many hospital appointments and group therapies, and at one point I was even having an undereating problem that destroyed my metabolism. And despite me eating healthier, exercising, etc., I'm still overweight for years now. And yeah, people don't understand that all they see when they look at me is a big girl, and think that if they just say something about giving me health advice on the spot, it is somehow going to fix me. All they do is add more stress to me. Story 13. It's a mindset. I was a gambling addict, and it took years to finally get over it. But I've known people with drink and drug problems just get up one day and say no, and that was it. Yeah, gambling's a tough one. No physiological aspect other than dopamine release or adrenaline rush, but I've seen that ruin lives faster and more thoroughly than most addictions. I recently saw an Ask Reddit post titled, "What's the worst thing you saw a person do after losing their shirt gambling?" I knew the answer but couldn't help but scroll. Suicide after suicide. with a couple of doubled down with their mortgage payment / kids' college fund thrown in for good measure. My former husband took his life due to his gambling addiction. He'd been a brilliant person his whole life, but the gambling absolutely destroyed him. He lived with shame, remorse, and guilt constantly, but was an obsessive gambler, and his solution was to die to end the pain and behavior. I found out in bereavement counseling that more gambling addicts suicide than all other addictions combined. That was a stat provided to me in 2006. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story to these that you would like to share with us, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.